have you be seated for the gospel? Because I'm going to tell the gospel today. Our holy gospel today comes from the Gospel of St. Mark, the 10th chapter, beginning with the 32nd verse. Now, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I know in the readings it says it starts on verse 36, I think. I'm starting on 32. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And the translation I'm using is a Message, which is a bit more modern language, so bear with me on that as well. So this is the gospel according to Mark 10, beginning with the 32nd verse. Let me tell you a story. So Jesus and the disciples were headed out back towards Jerusalem. And Jesus had gone ahead. He was walking ahead of them, and the others followed behind, and they were a little perplexed and maybe a little afraid. And Jesus gathered them together and told them what to expect. He said, we're going to Jerusalem, and when we get there, the Son of Man is going to be betrayed by the religious leaders, and he's going to be sentenced to death, and he's going to be handed over to the Romans. And they are going to mock him and spit on him and interrogate him, and then they are going to put him to death. And after 3 days, he will rise alive. And then John and James, who were Zebedee's sons, they came to Jesus and they said, "Teacher, we want you to do something for us." And Jesus said, "Go ahead, I'll see what I can do." And they said, "Arrange for it that when you come into your glory, we can join you. One of us sitting at your right hand and one of us sitting at your left hand." And Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you ask. Can you drink from the cup from which I drink? Can you be baptized in the baptism that I am about to plunge myself into?" And James and John said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Jesus replied, "Well, come to think of it, you are going to drink from the cup that I drink, and you will be baptized in the baptism that I will be baptized in. But as for sitting on my right and left, that's not for me to give. That has already been arranged." And the other 10 disciples, when they heard of this conversation, they became angry with James and John. And so Jesus gathered them together, and he told them, "You all know how godless leaders use their power to hurt others, and how tyrants lord their power over others. It won't be that way with us. For if you want to be great, you must become least. If you want to be first, you must become last, because the Son of Man did not come into this world to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for many who are being held hostage." This is the gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
So in our gospel today, like I said, I added a little bit. I added the first couple verses on at the beginning because I think it's an important distinction. I think it helps us tie into what's going on in this gospel. Because Jesus starts to tell them what's happening, right? This is actually the third time that Jesus has made this declaration that, hey, just so you know, when I get to Jerusalem, things are kind of going a little crazy. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to die. It's going to be horrible. It's not fun. But this is what's happening. Right? This is the third time he's laid this out for them. First time, they don't want to hear. The first time is when Peter says, "No, Lord, you got to stop saying stuff like that." And then Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." The second time he says it, they seem to accept that, yeah, okay, maybe he's going to go and die, but then they start worrying about, okay, so what happens to us after he dies? And they start arguing about, well, which one of us is greatest, kind of, which one of us is going to be, taking on leadership role after Jesus dies. This is the third time Jesus makes this claim. And what's interesting about it is, not only have they seem to have accepted that this is what's happening, they also have some pretty good faith in Jesus' power. Because they're not looking about, okay, what happens to us in this world afterwards. James and John are talking about what comes next. They have accepted this idea that God is going to die, but also that God is going to rise again, and that there is this kingdom to come, right? And so they start talking about that. And in good human way, they kind of got it, but they don't got it fully, right? They have some pretty incredible faith in the power of Jesus. I mean, think about what they're asking. They're asking Jesus that, hey, when you come into your power, when you are ruling over all, can you, make sure we got the good seats, right? That's an incredible ask. That takes an incredible belief in the power of God. Where they stumble a bit is, well, they think that power is finite. They think that power is just like all the other power they've seen in the world. It's something that they have to manipulate and work. right? There's only so much of it to go around. And if they don't take care of themselves first, well, then there might not be enough. And so then we have, the other 10 disciples, they get mad about this, right? And, to be honest, I don't think they're mad because James and John asked the question. I think they're mad because they didn't ask first. Because they're having that same thought, right? Because that's the way the world works. There's only so much power, there's only so much love, there's only so much resources to go around, and so we have to fight, and we have to scrape, and we have to get our own, right? And that's what they're doing. They're just kind of maneuvering a little bit to make sure that they are okay. Because the way they see it, if they are not first in line, well, then maybe there won't be enough by the time they come around. Because that's how this world works often. I grew up with a lot of kids in my family. A lot of kids at the dinner table. We didn't just have enough of our own kids. We, invited other kids in to come and stay with us as well. There's a lot of people. And so when it came time to dinner, if you weren't the first one done, you probably didn't get seconds, right? There's enough chicken for us all to have one piece. And if you got done, maybe there was one piece left. And so I learned to eat really fast because that's how you got the second piece of chicken, right? Now that wasn't always, but if it was something really nice and we had a lot of people over, that's how it works, right? We're used to that, right? The first one done gets to come up second. I mean, you should see the kids at confirmation on Wednesday nights when we eat our meal, right? Man, they get through that meal as quick as they can because they know that, hey, and then they're like waiting because they want to get up and get their seconds before it's all gone. That's how we work in this world. First one gets the most. And it gets less and less as you go along. You want to be first. And Jesus says, that's not how it works for us. If you want to be first, you must be last. If you want to be great, you must be least. Meaning that if you come in first or you come in last, it's the same. God's love is the same. That's the beauty of what God is promising, is that God has this incredible power, yes, but what's even better is that it's an unlimited power. There is no end to it. It just gets stronger. I mean, Mackenzie was baptized today. That was awesome, right? And there have been millions of people baptized before her. And her baptism was not lessened by all of the people who have come before and been baptized, and it will not be lessened by all those who come after. In fact, it is made greater because of that. Her community of saints who are with her in this journey is greater, and it becomes better and better. That's how God works. It's like multiplication through division, right? The more we split up God's love, the more we spread it around, the greater it becomes. And that's a hard thing for us to I think, fully wrap our minds around. Right? We can talk about God's love. We can talk about God's forgiveness. We can talk about, oh yes, this person here deserves God's love and God's forgiveness, even though, maybe they're outside of our group and all that kind of stuff. We can talk about it. But when it really comes to living it, to understanding that God's love is enough for all of us and even enough for ourselves. Because I think that's the message we hear often too. Yeah, God's love is great and powerful and strong, and it's for all these people, but probably not for me, because maybe I'm not the greatest, right? I'm not first in line. I got lost a couple times along the way. I'm not quite sure. I've stumbled along. The disciples stumble along over and over and over again, and God's love is fully there for them. That is the beauty of what God promises us. Not just power beyond what we can imagine, but a power that is more than enough for all of us, no matter how many there are. That's why God declares that you're free then, right? You're pushed to that freedom, because we don't have to worry ourselves with fighting and scraping and pulling it together and manipulating and maneuvering so that we get our own, right? We don't have to worry about earning this incredible gift of love and forgiveness. It is given to us. And so because of that, we are free to serve others, as God claimed. Not to be served, but to serve others. I got this picture up here because here are our kids out on National Youth Gathering serving others. They have all of this incredible stuff coming at this event, but it was in serving others that they felt closest to God. That's how it works. The more we serve others, the more we focus less on what we need and more on what the world needs. we discover that we already have everything we could possibly imagine. That is the beauty of God's love, is that it frees us to live freely in this world without the fear of missing out. Because it's already been given to us, and it is more than enough, and so we are free to love one another, to share God's love, to proclaim God's power and forgiveness in this world, and to live lives of servant saints. It is an incredible thing. God's power, God's love, God's mercy is greater than any deficit that we can think of. It is greater than any sin we may have committed. And it is for you. And it will never run out. God's love is for you. And it will never run out.